Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle. Today we're privileged to have with us Scott Yates, who is the CEO of BlogMutt. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Glad to be here.
Hey, you're welcome. And let's get started with just sharing a little bit about your background and what inspired you to become an entrepreneur at some point. Most people don't just jump into it day one. There's typically a time where they say, working for a company is no longer for me. And what did that point look like for you?
Yep, my first company was one that was born out of a frustration that I was having, which was just bad traffic. I was stuck in a traffic jam one day going just to a regular job. Or I think coming home from a regular job, and was frustrated about the fact that I couldn't know more about the traffic before I got stuck in it. This was a while back, though, right? This was before the iPhone and before Google Maps and Waze. And so I just spent some time researching and figured out that what would help is if I could just get an email telling me about what the traffic is like before I go out and get stuck in it. And so I looked around and figured out some ways to get it going and got it going. I really didn't have a lot of entrepreneurial stuff before that. I'd been a writer and reporter and editor and thought that I would have a long career as a journalist. Although at the point that I started it up, I guess I saw the writing on the wall that, a career in journalism wasn't probably going to be that promising for me.
Yeah, you brought up something interesting that you hear so many times on the shows like the Shark Tank, where so many entrepreneurs notice something in their own personal life, like, man alive, I can't find the solution to this thing, whatever it is, baby diapers or in your case, traffic. And then they start thinking, and then they start kind of having that ember get, burning deeper and deeper, and it kind of fans into a flame. And then they wake up one day and they're like, oh, I guess I'm an entrepreneur. But I noticed in your LinkedIn profile that you actually have a patent on distribution of traffic and transit information, which I'm sure led from your point there about your traffic. So can you speak to how you got from the idea of, wow, I wish this existed, to actually getting a patent? That's quite an achievement.
Yeah, I mean, it took quite a while. The thing that MyTrafficNews did that was a little bit different was we didn't just give you traffic information, we gave you information about transit too, so you could find out if your bus was going to be on time. Because I knew some people at RTD, and I figured out RTD is the transit district for Metro Denver, and I knew that they had real-time GPS data, and I thought that data would be helpful for figuring out traffic. But also, if you do take the bus and your bus is going to be late, that would be good to know before you go out and wait around at the bus stop. So once I put together getting traffic and transit into the same email, somebody recommended that I look at getting a patent on that. And I looked at it and hired a good patent lawyer and was able to get a patent. And that was, it was great. And it was also important when I sold MyTrafficNews to Traffic.com. That was one of the key things that they took. And then the interesting part of the story is that a few months after Traffic.com bought my company, MyTrafficNews, that was acquired by a mapping company, and then that mapping company was acquired by a cell phone company, and then eventually that cell phone company was acquired by Microsoft. And,
wow.
And so the headline was Microsoft, is buying this company largely for its patent portfolio. So I like to take all the credit, like they had some 20,000 some patents, but one of them was mine in there, and so I like to take all the credit for that.
That's like the story I heard just recently from a speaker on stage. They were talking about how Michael Jordan in his heyday had scored like 69 points in one game, and one of the guys riding the bench got in for like a half a minute, scored 1 point, got fouled, scored a point, and they interviewed that guy after the game, and they were like, what's it like playing with Michael Jordan, scored 69 points? He goes, well, I like to say that in this game, Michael Jordan and I combined for a total of 70 points. And so it's
yeah, that's right.
It's the truth, but it's like, wow. And yeah, you could say, your company was acquired by Microsoft for the patent because that is the truth. And it's really neat just to see that, because in reality, starting from that kernel of a thought of, wow, this is a frustration, I wonder if there's a solution, you actually took it from something that is a personal benefit, like to you wanted it, but then you started looking around going, I bet other people would, and that becomes a broad appeal. So where do you feel like in an entrepreneur, like even using your example, but where does an entrepreneur start looking from internal of helping them and their employees to then looking further out and then going broader, maybe global, but just more regionally to how many people can I impact with my product or service?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the trick, is just finding the people that you can be of service to. And then the other big trick that's part of it is to just really make sure that you've got a business model, right? Like you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you don't have some way to support it, it's not going to get you very far. So, like with my current business, BlogMutt, I had a background in journalism. I knew about writing. I knew there were a lot of good writers that are working at home. And I thought, maybe there's a way that we can put them to use. But the one thing I wanted to make sure of was that they were going to have a place that the other, I wanted to build a marketplace. So I got together with my co-founder, Wade Green, Wade and I started MyTrafficNews, and then I hired Wade to help me. And I started another company and hired Wade to help me on that one. And then for this one, we just became partners. And so we started working on it pretty closely. And one of the things that we wanted to figure out really quickly was, is there really a market for this? Are people going to actually pay for this? So that's when I started, asking businesses about, the idea of, look, you need to get your blogging done to do well with all of the metrics that you need to for marketing these days. But would you really be willing to pay for it? And it doesn't really work to just say, to ask somebody if they would pay and have them say yes.
Yep.
You really have to say, here's how to enter your credit card information. Yep. And once they actually start paying, even if you don't have the thing totally built, then you scramble around like crazy and get the thing built to make sure that you can get it fulfilled. Yeah. But that was the big key for us there.
That's a huge point, because I know I heard Les Brown speak here in Denver a few weeks ago, and he's famous for saying, jump and grow your wings on the way down, meaning don't try to make it perfect. Don't get analysis of paralysis, and now all of a sudden you got to have it perfect, and then nothing ever gets done. Get something out there, get that minimum viable product going, and then you see what your tribe is telling you to do, and then you enhance and tweak and add, and then you have to keep an eye on things, because I know that you're probably familiar with the company 37 Signals, which has Basecamp, and they're famous for saying, you know what, we get a lot of requests for new features, and we will turn down the majority of them because we want this to be a functional piece of software that people can use easily. And the more and more and more things you put in there, it just almost becomes cumbersome, and people then kind of lose interest. So what was your journey like when you started getting some of these business owners saying, yeah, that would be a need? They started buying it. You started providing that. How did you know, number one, how to scale, but number two, what new nuances were you able to bring on board and have your clients and prospects appreciate that?
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, it's been a process, right? We started with just, one size of blog post and one plan to get one blog post per week. And we've really expanded from there. So now you can get, basically as many blog posts as you want per month. And then also we expanded the sizes, so you can get, short posts, or you can get posts up to, 1,200 words as a minimum. And then, and also some other stuff, photos are always great with posts, so you can hire us to pick the photo for you and put those with the post. And it is a fine balance, right? Like the 37 Signal guys are right. Like you don't want to just do everything that every customer asks. But on the other hand, you do need to be able to provide the services that they need. And so, it's definitely a fine balance. Luckily, it's a little bit easier to test stuff these days. We just one quick story. We had several people that asked us for a feature where they could call in and just record their thoughts. So like if they're just driving down the road, they could call in and leave a kind of a detailed voicemail, and then we could provide that for the writers, and then the writers would take that and form that into a blog post. We had a bunch of people suggest that, and so we thought, oh, okay, it sounds good, right? There's nothing wrong with the theory of that at all, but we didn't want to spend tons of time building that out to make sure that, because we didn't know if it was going to work. Well, luckily, software's a little bit easier these days, so we were able to test that out using some tools that are out there, and then just plug them into our system. And it didn't look great, and it was really just kind of hacked together. But but it worked enough to get the concept down. And once we had the concept out there, we realized it didn't work at all. Like people think that they want to do that, but they don't actually, it doesn't actually work to just talk to a voice recording and then have somebody try to take those thoughts and form them into a blog post. It didn't work on several levels. But we didn't invest a year and 3 coders putting that together. It was really just a matter of some free or low cost tools and put it together and got it out there.
Yeah, that's a huge piece, and that's kind of like the concept of staying lean and nimble. And you can use a tool, and if one of those clients wanted that, sign them up for a free Google Voice number that automatically translates it or transcribes it and emails it over to the team, and then that way you can test it. Now, what if that went like gangbusters? Now you can invest in some technology and infrastructure. Hey, so once you got to the point where people started getting some momentum, what was it that was what were the mechanisms and processes that helped you scale up and build a team? Because you certainly can't have 4 writers that provide all of this. You've got a vast amount of writers. So how do you vet these people? How do you find them? How do you make sure that the quality stays up? Because I'm sure that we all know that out there's a lot of writing resources that it looks like it was written by a 4-year-old, and all of a sudden now you can't present that to a customer. So how do you find good quality talent and build that pool of good writers so that you're delivering a good product?
It's definitely a challenge, and it's a challenge that we still face now. We've been at this for 5 years, and we still face that challenge just about every day. A couple of core things that we did early on that are really crucial to that. One is, working with Wade, we really wanted to build something that was going to be scalable from the start. So we really have tried to build our infrastructure to be able to match that. And the other is that, I knew that, there are a lot of people who are decent writers, but writers don't get a lot of respect out there, and they don't get a lot of encouragement, and it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world out there. So we wanted to make sure we provided a place that was really positive and encouraging and helpful for writers. And allow them to do just the writing bits without having to do all the other stuff. So, our system is set up to make it super easy to do just the writing, and they don't have to chase down clients to get them to pay invoices. They don't have to chase down clients at all, right? Like we do all of the stuff dealing with the client. The writers, all they have to do is write. So, we do vet them. We give them a writing test. We make sure that they live in the United States. And then we have a few other ways of vetting them behind the scenes, both with software and with our in-office staff. But the biggest thing that we do is really work on really respecting writers for who they are and what they bring to the table. And that culture of respect has really spread. And so the writers forums that are out there and the communities, all the writers really, in general, have really nice things to say about working with BlogMutt and working with the BlogMutt clients.
Yeah, and that kind of feeds upon itself, because if the writers are out there grumbling, then you're not going to get good writers, and then you can't provide a good quality content to the clients, which then, if that happens, then the domino chain of effect happens where you lose clients. So you got to work both sides of the equation. Get clients, keep them happy. How do you keep them happy? Get good writers, keep them happy, and the net result is good content to good clients, and everyone wins.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there are a lot of writers that, they're terrific. Like a lot of them are like for instance, a paralegal who had a, good job, had a successful life working in law offices, but then decided that she wanted to stay home with her kids. But she's just as smart as she was before, but she just happens to be working. She only has an hour or two a day to devote to professional stuff. And so BlogMutt is a great way for that writer to be able to do what she's good at professionally without having to have it be constrained on time and location. She can do it, wherever and whenever makes sense for her.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we're in the virtual society that we're in, so why not? What does it matter? And I guess what it boils down to is, for a business owner, we all know, and we could spend hours upon hours talking about content marketing and the power of what that does for business, and actually why we're so far beyond, it's a foregone conclusion why you need to blog these days. People should know it, but we know that there's power in it. But guess what? It ain't getting done. The business owner's running the business, their secretary doesn't know how to, and they're not going to hire someone to run their marketing internally, because now that's a new employee. And so being able to outsource specific pieces like this, like just the blog writing. Now, I think that it's an ingenious concept in the sense that you could also start really turning over the apple cart and going, oh, and we also do social media marketing, PPC, SEO, video, and now all of a sudden people are just confused and they don't do anything whatsoever. So keeping a laser focused on we do blogs and we do blog writing well, I think that's super powerful. Have you been tempted to add in new services and then held back because of that reason alone?
Yeah, exactly that. We get drawn in two different directions at the same time, and both of them make lots of sense, and both of them are just wrong for BlogMutt. One of them is that we should go more broad, offer more tools, and also offer more writing services. Like why don't you guys just write content for web pages or write product descriptions, stuff like that. And most of the other writing services that are out there do just that, and that's fine for them, and that's the way that they're set up. And we've really stayed laser focused on blogs. A couple of other things that are related to blogs, right? Like so the picture is not a blog, but we don't sell pictures on their own, right? We only sell pictures that go with blogs.
Yeah.
And the other part of that is we want to make sure that we have a lot of agencies that use BlogMutt. And we want to make sure that we're not competing with our customers. So we don't want to become an agency, right? We don't want to do the things that agencies do because that's not what we do. And also, we just don't want to compete with them. We don't want anybody leaving an agency to go to just BlogMutt. We like the fact that agencies use us, and so we want to make sure we don't compete. The other thing, just that's the flip side of that, is we get a lot of advice about what we should really do is specialize on just one niche or one vertical or one industry. And we haven't done that. We've stayed super broad on, we can write about just about any topic, anywhere, any place. And the customers will often say, well, but, you really need somebody who's really specialized in my thing, whatever my thing is. And my only response to that is that, first of all, we've been successful writing about everything under the sun for 5 years. And so that's, we've got a little bit of track record now to be able to back up the claim. But even 5 years ago, I thought, if you pick up a daily newspaper, there are people who have written a story that's on the front page of the paper who didn't know anything about the thing that they wrote about the day before. Yeah. And what they are, though, is good researchers and good writers. And so that's what we have at BlogMutt, people that can research what goes into a good blog post and write a good blog post. And that's the thing that the clients need. They don't need expertise because, the client, the business is the expert in the thing that they do. Yep. The blog isn't the expert. The blog is, I call it just the small talk of the internet, right? It's a way of just having chit chat in the waiting room while you're getting ready to talk about the thing that you're an expert about. So you want it to be friendly. You don't want it to be, wrong about the content, but it doesn't need to go in depth, and it doesn't need to be the expert material that the blog that needs to happen from whatever perspective the client has. But it just need to be friendly and accessible. Because remember, the people that are buying the services, they're not experts either. They want somebody who's they think is going to be able to speak their language.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think, wasn't it Albert Einstein that said, if you can't explain what you do in such uncertain terms that a 10 or 12-year-old can understand it, then you don't even understand it. So you don't need the highfalutin language. You just need to be able to talk conversationally about your topic. And a writer can do some quick research and find out something from this niche to that vertical to the other and put together a nice blog post. So, yeah, you're not looking for technical writers that are putting together a white paper or a reference guide. So I think that's where that line is. So I love that laser-focused targeting concept that you're employing. Hey, so what are your thoughts around strategic philanthropy?
Strategic philanthropy? I don't know. What should my thoughts be? I probably haven't thought enough about it.
Yeah, like for instance, Bill Gates can write a check for $8 quadrillion because he has, plenty of money, but there's a lot of businesses that take the angle of like the Starbucks that, have the red campaign, or the whoever company out there that says, hey, when you come in, we're going to donate some of these proceeds to charity. And these charities tend to be local causes around their community, which then engenders, kind of that feeling of community. Have you seen that in your business as well?
Yeah, we see it. We see examples of it from time to time. We haven't gotten into it with BlogMutt, and we're still pretty small, right? We just got up to 11 people in the office, and we have a good group of writers around the country. But I I don't want to say I'm Mother Teresa here, but I really do like the fact that we are really providing a great opportunity for writers. We had a great blog post recently that was written by one of our writers about the fact that it's a husband and wife team, and both of them had full-time jobs, and then both of them would write for BlogMutt on nights and weekends. And they had a kid, and then the father of the family got a new job, and so he was starting to make a little bit more money. And they realized that if they both just did a little bit more for BlogMutt, that the mom would be able to stay home. And then they got pregnant. The wife got pregnant again, so now they've got 2 small kids, and she's going to be able to stay home with those kids because of the money that they make with BlogMutt. That money made with BlogMutt plus what the dad makes at his regular job does it. So, the fact that we can provide an opportunity for that family to be able to have enough income to be able to do that, for me, like, it's not charity, right? It's work, because I'm asking them to do a work product. They're doing something that's for work. But I think there's value in work. And I think that there's value in people working and getting paid for providing a service in the marketplace, in the world that has value. And I think it's great for companies to say, look, this is something that we can't afford to do. But, there are a lot of companies that want to compete with the bigger companies that have enough money to be able to hire a full-time writer, and they want to be able to compete, but they just don't have time to write their own blog posts. Well, we keep our costs as low as we possibly can so that those businesses can afford to really compete. So I feel like what we're doing for writers and what we're doing for businesses to be able to allow them to have blog content and really compete in the modern marketplace, I feel like both those things are honorable things. We're helping businesses to really thrive, and we're helping the writers to thrive in their own way.
Yeah, I agree with that 1,000%, and that really is something where some of these writers might be banging their head against the wall, going, "I just can't get in, make my break into journalism, but that's where my passion is." But now that this becomes a vehicle, and you start thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and recognition and achievement, and all of a sudden now you're bringing this opportunity to that writer of dignity, achievement, recognition, because I'll bet you that some of your businesses can rate the writer, and now that is that little shot of endorphin to go, "Ooh, wow, I've been writing for BlogMutt. I've been maybe creating some of this revenue and impacting myself financially and with my family, and wow, I got a 4-star rating out of 4, or whatever the case is." So I love that concept. I think that's great. And so how do you have those incentives and reward your writers to keep the good ones on board?
Well, it's a few things. When we first started this, we've learned that the theory about crowdsourcing, the 4 Ps of crowdsourcing. And so this is where it's good that I have the little pop screen because in front of my microphone, because I got to talk about a bunch of P words. The 4 Ps of crowdsourcing. So this is the 4 ways that people are motivated when they want to participate in some kind of crowdsourced activity. So one of them is professional development. One of them is personal growth, one of them is pay, and one of them, I should have thought of personal growth and I forgot what the 4th P is, and then we added a 5th P, which I call points, because people, we have a point system on the back end of BlogMutt for writers, where the more posts they write, the more 5 stars they get, the more points, 5-star posts they write, the more points they get, and writers really enjoy that, right? They like moving up the system, and then there's little things that go along with leveling up. Level 6, they get a T-shirt, so we send them a T-shirt and a nice thank you card. We do one thing that actually is unique among crowdsourcing companies, which is we actually give a percentage of ownership of BlogMutt in the form of warrants to writers who get to a very high level. Writers that write, it ends up being about 500 blog posts. Once you've sold about 500 blog posts, you get enough points that you become what we call a co-owner. And it's in the form of warrants, so they don't have a tax liability, but they're able to produce. They're able to have a little chunk, and then if BlogMutt ever does get acquired someday, they'll get a little check out of that. Nothing huge, but just a little way of us saying that we consider the work that you do part of the success overall of what we do at BlogMutt.
Yeah, that's a really good validation.
It really is, and we got some press about that, and as far as I know, I think we're still unique in that because it's it was a hard thing to do. It was a tricky thing. We had to do a lot of lawyering to make it work. But, I think we're pretty much the only crowdsourcing company that says, look, you are not just, like Uber right now is getting a lot of grief because of how they keep lowering the amount that they pay to the writers or to the drivers. And, and I understand that. And that's just Uber trying to, make as much money as they possibly can. And, we're not like Uber, right? We're not big like that. And we're not probably as aggressive as they are. And so there's nothing technically wrong with trying to squeeze every possible dollar, every possible ounce of work that you can get out of your writers. But it's just not the way that we wanted to operate. We wanted to operate where we thought the people of the crowd are really what make BlogMutt, and we really want to honor them in any way that we can and really be respectful to them. So that's something, I mentioned that before, and it's really been baked into our DNA all the way through.
And I think that comes through through all of the intricacies of how a writer comes on board, how they're recognized, how they're vetted, how they're appreciated, and then how the business owner gets good content. And I think that if that even without saying it, people feel it, and that's a huge piece. So to wrap up, how would people get to know more about the service and visit BlogMutt to see if that would be a good fit for them, either as a writer or as a business owner to get content?
It's all right there on the website. It's just BlogMutt, BlogMutt.com. And right on the homepage, we say, are you a business or are you an agency that helps businesses with their content, or are you a writer? And you just click those and, one of those three choices. And then we take you into, and walk you through the steps to be able to use the platform in the way that's going to work best for you.
Super. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful getting to know you.
Yeah, and if I can be of any service, just there's a contact form right on the page, and I will try to get back to anybody that has any other questions or anything I can do to help.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.